Hello, everyone. My name is Chris. I am a cloud engineering team lead in XM. Have been with XM for the past 3 years and so. Before XM, I was working with AWS in Dublin as premium support engineer and systems engineer. And I'm here to talk to you about chaos engineering, the good, the bad, and the ugly side. What we have found that it's working and what does not. So just by a show of hands, the regular poll that everyone does, I know it's cool. Generations of age. Do we have any Generation Z from 1996 and onwards? Okay, and millennials or Generation Y? Okay, and Generation X up until 1976, anyone? No? Okay. Have a dinosaur here. Just, just remember your yearly checkup, okay? Before that, it's the baby boomers. Anyone? No? Okay, thank you, Stavros. Okay. Now, let me go a little bit about who is XM. XM is an online trading firm, has been around since 2009, very strong clientele, more than 5 million customers around the globe. The XM is part of a bigger corporation, a bigger organization. It's a brand. And as XM, there are other brands like trading.com. We are growing our stance and our client base in both Europe and the US, and of course Asia. And our headquarters are in Cyprus. We have offices, of course, here in Thessaloniki, in Athens, the UK, Australia, Emirates, the US. More than 1K employees. Maybe now we are closer to 1.5. And established fintech corporation, powerhouse for software development, and multiple Great Place to Work awards. But that's enough about XM. So the more I dealt with the title of the presentation, the more I saw that it relates to our line of work. Now, what I mean by that, we all have, as with the movie, the same ourselves, our KPIs, our OKRs. In the movie, it was the gold. Like a classical Western, there is gold. Processes and flows, you need to have them. You need to have a process so you know you are going in the right direction. Pipelines, of course. Investigations, there's always that part. Deployments are always fun. I think you all agree with that. Experiment runs, that's really shooting, feels like shooting when you're running chaos experiments. You don't know where it will hit, who will die, who will be fired. Maybe it's you, maybe not. RCAs, and then some more RCAs. And yearly evaluations, of course. Now, what chaos really is, from the mythology, chaos is void, is nothingness, it's empty. But it's also the beginning of everything, because once you are in zero, you can always go up. Definitely it's not this. Although it feels like it for the ones that are running it. You have to look like everything is fine. Really, it's just a practice that through experimentation, you can discover gaps in your architecture, in your systems, in your processes even how human factor plays in. And really, it's just about the difference, the delta between your expectations and reality, what really happens. Now, on the other side, what chaos engineering really is not. It's not quality assurance. Quality assurance is about load testing, although it might feel like you're breaking something or you will be breaking something. It has to do about load testing and benchmarking. Chaos is experimentation. Chaos compared to SRE testing in production. I don't know if there are any SREs here. Maybe they will argue about that, but SREs is tests, chaos is experiments. With tests, you have knowns. You know your system, you are stressing it through a magnifying lens on a specific area, on a specific focus, with a specific scope. With experiments, with chaos engineering experiments, you are stressing or you are introducing faults in a complex system and you don't know which way is up. That's the whole idea behind it. You want to stress your system so you will discover if it's resilient or if it can perform to the expectations you have. Your system, maybe you think it sustains 100 concurrent users with a latency up to 5 milliseconds, but what will happen if you lose one of your web servers? So your load balancing now is just for a single server. Can you sustain 100 users yet with less latency than before? Chaos is safe. That's another myth. It's not safe. You are shooting things in production. You are killing it. And as with cloud, that it's workloads on someone else's computer, chaos is just breaking stuff. Now, why do we really need it? Why do we really do chaos engineering? For this one, I'll try to explain it through two experiments. The first one is about Formula One. You have any Formula One fans here? Okay, so you probably know, if you were watching from the old times, how much pit stops have evolved. Now, back in the 50s, it was more than a minute. Now it's less than 3 seconds. This came through repetitions, exercise, and everything. But let me explain a little bit to the rest of the audience what a pit stop is. Through the painful race, the car has to stop to get some fuel, change tires, and everything. So there is this detour in the lap where the team's garages are. The car goes there, and immediately, as soon as it stops, a bunch of engineers called the pit crew jump onto it. There are 12 engineers for 4 tires. Their job is to change 4 tires. There are 1 or 2 engineers for the driver's helmet visor. They have to clean it up, make sure it's not cracked and everything. There are another 2 for the fuel. They are pumping fuel at a very high rate. And there are another 4 for just checking mechanical issues, checking the angles of the wings and everything. And of course, that's that cool guy, it's called the lollipop man, who holds the sign for the driver. That looks like he's the coolest. He has the least of the job, but he has the biggest responsibility of everything. He has to check that every one of those 20-something engineers gives the go-ahead, that he's done from his task and his part is completed and okay. Then he switches the sign, and the driver that only sees that sign just pops first gear and he goes. There are cases, though, that some of these pit crews didn't give the go-ahead and they were hurt, and It's kind of similar in our line of work, right? Now, through continuous analysis and reviews of their actions during the pit stop, they have found better ways, as history shows, to improve that time. They have improved it so much that now the pit stop is about 1 second and 92, 1.92. That's the record at the time, and they are estimating that it will go below 2 seconds in the coming year. It has evolved. This is the nature of what we are trying to do with chaos. We are trying to see how much we can sustain, how much resilient we are for evolution. The same happened with Formula One. Now, they are about to change the name of the pit stop to a pit pass. So the car will just pass by that thing for 2 seconds, and then it's out to do another 30 or 40 laps. Another example is an airways flight, 1549. There's a movie about it. I think it was Tom Hanks. And the plane, as soon as it took off from New York City, hit a flock of birds. Both engines caught fire, and the captain had to shut down the engines. So the plane was just gliding. The emergency landing process started, which is always practiced for the crews. They knew exactly what each one should do, what to do. And the passengers never panicked. They never realized what happened. There's also a Wikipedia page about it. You can even hear the conversation of the captain and the first officer with the control tower. The control tower tried to get them to an airport, either where they landed or to another nearby airport. The captain said, no, I'm going to land this thing in the Hudson River. Now, if a plane lands in a river, it's so expensive for the insurance company that it's crazy. Now, what really happened here is everyone survived, no casualties whatsoever. Even their staff were retrieved later on. But there was a trial suit. The captain and the first officer were facing serious charges, not just losing career, but we are talking maybe high stakes. Now, the only thing the airline company had was flight simulator, which is a simulator. It's very, very accurate because for airplanes, it's serious business. They were running the simulators again and again, and they could see that the plane could safely land in one of the two airports for the majority of the runs. However, right before the verdict, the defense said that the simulator would not factor in the human, the decision-making time, the human factor. How much seconds or minutes would it take for the captain, given the circumstances, to take an educated decision for his plane and the souls he was carrying? That time was estimated to 35 seconds. So they went back to the simulators in the courtroom, they factored that in, and the plane not only didn't make it to either airport for all the runs, but it would also crash over populated area. And at that point, it would not be 150 people, it would be much more. So through continuous testing and evaluation, which was at the time their chaos engineering, the captain said that I was depositing in the knowledge and experience bank a small amount every day that I cashed out on that specific flight. Now, let's go into what this means for you, how it can help you. Should you follow the principles, the best practices, or you should do your own? The answer is really simple, whatever suits you best. You check your organization. If you need to deliver something fast, you can follow the principles. They are ready made. You have a skeleton to work with. If you have time to investigate and make up your own, do that. The first four for us are the best practices, the steady state. You have to establish which is your steady state before the experiments. I have this many requests and my maximum latency is this. Then you have your hypothesis. If I shut down one of the nodes, one of the pods, or I do some other change in my database, I expect to have these changes, this many requests for this many latency. Then you take the actual actions, you do the fault, you introduce the fault, you watch it clearly and closely, and you also need to have always your circuit breaking, stop conditions for any of your experiments. And those are the most important thing. Because it's running on production, you don't want to kill it. You don't want to bring your whole company down. That's just chaos engineering for yourself and your career. Then you have your review. The review is an incident response review. It should be treated like any other incident that you are running as a business, as a company, as a team. Try and get everyone on that same room, even if it's from other teams. They could just listen, they could pitch in, you could get something you are missing, you could see some angle you are not seeing yet, because it's obvious we cannot predict everything, hence chaos. The two extra that worked for us, evidence and logging, we have made this a separate step because we want the engineers to take their time and get the right evidence, undisputed evidence. They have to be on the spot. They have to have the proper logs. The logs have to show what they are suggesting. The pod took that much time to become available because the image was not on the node. So the node had to pull the image and everything. Traces, 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 and logs. And of course, takeaway points. It's very important. You point the problem, but you don't stop there. You have to find an owner to get that and drive it. It could take a year to fix it. It could be so complex that it could take a year. That's fine. As long as there's an owner, there is someone taking a close look at it, dusting it off. Now, these steps helped us to form the life cycle of our waves. So every takeaway point, every actionable becomes a feed for the next wave. We don't want to see repeating patterns, repeating faults, repeating reasons why something is failing. Even if it's just be that we are lacking the alarms. Now, a few focus areas. We'll see here what worked for us and what didn't. The good, the bad, and the ugly. For the good thing, the infrastructure has to be clean. It has to be no leftovers. You cannot have an instance that is stopped or a server that is just there sitting in the subnet. It has to be clean. Diagrams everywhere. My team and other teams probably have my face on a, a bullseye, throwing darts at me. It's important. If you cannot visualize your setup, you cannot think fast. You cannot see dependencies. Diagrams have to be updated every single time there's a change. Testing and controlling your experiments from their conception, now with the catchy words, shift everything to the left, they have to be right from the dev phase. Tests and controlling, very important. And the response and operational teams have to be trained, either through chaos or other exercises, but they have to be trained. I mean, the people, not just run books to exist, the people, they have to know. The bad situation for us we have seen a few of these, by the way, what I'm having in my presentation. The infrastructure is somehow tangled. You have infrastructure, a server farm that is fine. You have some other server farms that are not clean. You have leftovers. They are hogging the network or whatnot. You have some kind of diagrams. They just exist. They are not updated. There's a saying in Greek. It says that half knowing something is worse than not knowing something. Uniformity. Your environments are not uniform configured. And it goes without saying. I mean, I skipped in this in the good situation. Uniformity has to be everywhere. You cannot have your dev to have a MySQL database, and then your production has a MariaDB cluster. If whatever you are trying in your dev will not work the same for your for your production from there. And then your response and operational teams are somehow trained. They know a little bit about what they have to do, which is again bad. In the case of incidents, you know everyone that is knowledgeable to jump in and take actions. You have a little conversation, you know what's the mitigation, you mitigate it, and when you have time, you do your RCA and you proceed to remediation. The ugly situation, your infrastructure is all over the place. If that's the case for you, don't go for chaos. It's something that you will definitely break something. You don't have any diagrams. You cannot then visualize changes or flows or if your traffic switches to a secondary route or something. Tests and controls, you don't have even testing. I mean, who does things in production that are not even tested? Don't raise your hands. I know managers are here as well. And the response and operational teams are not trained, so they told them to jump on a call. They called them, someone called them through, I don't know, Slack or Teams. So they answered. Now, the implementation part of your chaos experiments and chaos practice in general. You are using infrastructure as a code. This is the good case scenario. Infrastructure as a code helps you from you. You deploy something, has to be almost identical in your stages, in your environments. You are using environments. You are using dev, test, staging, or pre-prod and prod. You have an environment to test it yourself, to show it to your team, to run your tests, your quality assurance tests, your benchmarks, your functional, non-functional, whatever. Even chaos, you can run in staging or pre-prod and then production. So by the time your chaos experiment reaches production, you have already tested it in 3 other experiments. One of them which is identical, which is the pre-prod. And your processes and principles are well defined. You have a process for when a web server fails. You have a process for when a database fails, a cache, the front end, the back end. You have that thing there. It helps you for that human factor right in the flight. 35 seconds to take a very important decision. The bad thing is that you are partially using infrastructure as a code. It can be Terraform, it can be CloudFormation, it can be CDK, it can be whatever, but you're lightly using it, or you're not using it for everything. So when time comes that you have a disaster and you want to make a change, you want to upscale, you want to provision something, you want to change a limit, you don't know which way you should do it. And that's adding on to the incident, to your downtime. Environments, just having dev and prod, I think in our times, it's not ideal. You need to have an additional environment at least. This is what we have found. Although for some of the projects, it might work, for the majority, it doesn't. And your processes and principles are partially defined. Again, half knowing is worse than not knowing. You have a process that is not clear. So the engineer gets the process, gets the runbook, but he or she reaches a point that she doesn't know what to do. So everyone now questions the engineer and the process itself. Should she or he have done these actions? Is it his or her fault, or it's the process? The ugly situation, you are not using infrastructure as a code. And let me tell you, if you are not using infrastructure as a code, you are not having environments, and you don't have uniformity. Subsequently, your processes and principles are not well defined. They cannot be well defined because you don't know what to do. Everything is a snowflake for you. Everything is unique. And for the execution, for us, what we have seen, the bad case scenario, nothing is down. Yes, we did cause a few incidents, but we contained them. However, nothing major went down. We used staging aggressively before going to production. The stop conditions are working now. They were not working when we were at staging, so we went back to the whiteboard, we corrected, we found the reasons, we tested again, at least up to staging, and then tried in production. So the stop conditions worked. And the reviews yield actionable. Now, this is debatable. I mean, we all build the perfect infrastructures, 100%. There is no room for improvement, right? We are all perfect. Well, let's be real about this. There's always room for improvement, even for documentation. The bad case scenario, the customers are impacted. This is like, I don't know, maybe you will hear the next day from your boss, and I mean, you're gonna hear it. You said that this chaos thing would not hurt us. Well, we were half an hour down last night. What happened? And then you have to explain that it's not your fault. Oh no, it is. You have part of the responsibility. That's why you need to run it beforehand. The stop conditions didn't work in this case, obviously. That's why you had that downtime. And your reviews do not yield actionables. The ugly thing is that everything was down. The whole company was down. The whole website of the company. Customers could not log in. They could not register. They could not make orders. That is like you have vanished the company, and maybe you will be vanished later on. Stop conditions did not work whatsoever, and I don't even want to talk about reviews. You would not be having the reviews there. You would just be packing your desk or your bags. Now, for those of you that are not in the managerial positions, let me give you a cheat sheet, how you can convince your boss for buy-in into chaos. I don't believe that this has ever worked for me, but maybe it will for you. Just suit up, say a bunch of smart things. Hopefully he or she doesn't know what you're talking about, and then he'll think, oh, this guy is something. Others are using it. Just like kids, let me give you this carrot, your friend is eating it, or the competition is eating it. It's good for you. It's good for you never works, actually. It's just jealous thing. What if we could find an issue before it actually happens? This one goes in line with the next point, but it is separated. Some bosses will get this and they will understand the importance, and you will have your buy-in. Others maybe will need the training. They could see better the response time of the teams, of the incident management teams, or the system engineers, or any other IT teams that are on call, how fast they get on board, how fast each problem is resolved. And really, the control and safety we all have is a fake, it's an illusion. I mean, I remember we were doing, using auto-scaling groups because it's so nice. Everything works automatically. Well, we lost a region. And that was, so that was something. POCs, it's always a point to consider for convincing your boss. Of course, in non-prod, you are still in the buy-in phase. Maybe you're not even there. And post-mortem RCAs and reports, even if you run it in dev, you could pinpoint gaps in architecture from dev. And it's okay, it's dev. But what if those get slipped away? What if we are going to from the wrong route from dev? This can help us correct our route and shift everything to the left. In other words, these two pictures might be your end result. Now, be very, very careful though. You could order just this nice Western. It's a movie about a treasure hunt. It has some, chitty chitty bang bang. It has some killing, some hangings, but still it's an old one. Definitely, it's not this. You never want to go there. I'll leave you with this. I'm always doing it. I hope you didn't get bored of it. I have never failed. I just found 10,000 ways that doesn't work. I'm Chris. We are XM right outside this door. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris, from XM. Do we have any questions for Chris? Any discussion points? Raise your hand really high and I'll run up there. There you are.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. Question is, what is the time frame for you to organize and execute a chaos experiment in prod or in any other environment?
It's a nice question, thank you. In the beginning, it was a lot. It could take us the experimentation phase in dev. I remember the first wave we had was something like a full day. As we progressed, we found also alternatives. So that's why we separated the two steps at the end, the takeaway points and the evidence and logging, to separate. So we are running the experiments in a sequence. Takes us about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes to run 4 or 5 experiments. And we are retrospectively collecting the evidence. To do that, though, you need to have proper alarms, proper metrics, tags, of course. I mean, chaos can not only work for resiliency, we have seen that it might also work for costs, for example. So it's up to you and how much time you put into it.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Chris from XM, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Folks,